Hello, and welcome to Create, Connect, Communicate, the EMG podcast. My name is Michelle Ponto, and I'm the content strategist here at EMG. Today on our podcast, we have a very special guest with us, Matías Rodsevich. Matías is the founder of PR Lab and the author of the book, The PR Paradox, which is an engaging study on the nature of PR in today's world. We asked him to be on our podcast today to share his insights on the communication trends he sees happening in 2021. Welcome to our podcast, Matías.
Thank you so much for having me. What an honor.
As I mentioned in your introduction, you have a book that recently came out, I think it came out in September, called The PR Paradox. Tell me why this book is an important tool for PR professionals to have these days.
What triggered me to write this book was the fact that I noticed that a lot of startups and scale-ups and small businesses were being disregarded by agencies. And they are the ones that, in my opinion, need PR the most, because and I hope you too, Michelle, I think PR is a super powerful tool for drives growth when used right, basically, and it has a lot of potential. But what I see is that, and that's hence the name, the PR paradox, is that all these startups don't really know how to do PR, or use it right. So the paradox relies on the fact that PR is a key element for growth, but it's mainly used by big corporations with big budgets. And that's what the book is about, is how to master the art of PR as a small business, startup, scale up, like a company that is growing, basically. And every chapter speaks about one key element of your strategy, basically, and how to do it properly. Like, there's one about media relations, another one about branding, another one about crisis communications, and so on.
It sounds like it even could be a good refresher for those people that are in the corporate PR world as well.
100%, because the book also talks about the importance of integrating PR with the rest of your funnel and things that have been changing, like in latest like tools as well that you could use to basically ramp up your PR game, and talks about the media landscape as well. So I think overall, like even if you work at a corporation, we all have an element of entrepreneurship in our daily lives, right? We want to start a new project, we want to start like a new product, a new business line, a new side revenue stream whatsoever. So the book comes in super handy for that as well.
Okay. I know our listeners are very interested in what's going to happen in 2021. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about 2020, because this was a year none of us expected. And I've heard you mention in the past, in some of the other sessions that I've heard you speak at, is that you say that we're going through what you call the VUCA times, and that's VUCA for those of you who are listening. Matías, what does VUCA mean, and how does it affect communication professionals and their audience?
Well, VUCA is actually an acronym that was used in basically 1987. I think it was created. It's like a war term, and it basically describes an environment of uncertainty, right? So VUCA is like, it starts for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. That is basically 2020.
100% 2020.
100%, it's like a very, very challenging year, just put it in a way. This acronym describes a certain environment that we're in. And basically, volatility stands for like changing, unstable, and fluctuating, uncertainty because it's super hard to plan in detail, complexity because the volume of information is increasing and it's not independent, so it's very complex, the environment that we're in, because things are changing all the time. So it's hard to get a grip of what's happening, and ambiguity because there is a lack of clarity. The challenge is to move from a VUCA environment, like volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, to an environment of vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. That's where the challenge relies on, basically. And as a spoiler, and what these experts recommend is to get as much information as possible to tackle that element of uncertainty. So you need to identify key players in the industries, that are communicating changes in real time, and if there's any, you can become one. But the best thing to do in an environment of uncertainty is to be informed and aware of what's happening in your surroundings, so talking to maybe non-direct competitors, talking to your users, understanding how things are changing, like, analyzing what's happening is what will eventually help you thrive in this environment.
Okay, so it's almost like people should not be rushing forward and trying to be putting out as many fires as possible or trying to conquer the situation overnight.
Exactly.
You need to research, adjust, and be strategic.
Correct. Do your research. Try to make try to make as many data-driven decisions as possible, and I think something that we PR communications professionals struggle with sometimes is to not make noise just for the sake of it, right? Because we have this, in our PRs, we have these, goals of like, publish this much, create this much content, publish this much content, make all this noise in social media. But I think the challenge for the year ahead is to stay relevant. And in order to be relevant, you need to add value to a conversation, and the question here is how many brands are actually adding value to this conversation, or are just making noise just for the sake of it because they want to just be part of a certain discussion that nobody knows what it's about. We really need to question ourselves, like, is this content that I'm creating going to add value, to these people? And you might be wondering, okay, but what does it mean to add value? Well, add value means to help someone to overcome a struggle. So analyze their pain points, as we talk in marketing, analyze what they're struggling with. Is your content tackling any of those? Is it, in a sense, helping them to let's have a more joyful life or overcome a certain struggle? Or is it just noise to promote your brand, and your product?
I have to agree with you. And I think a lot of our clients have been going through the Volca thing this year, because we saw them like, stop, just kind of keep going, a lot of strategy coming out, but we feel like 2021, they're ready to move forward. So that brings me to my next question. You kind of already touched on it. Yeah. So now that we're kind of still in the Volca times, but they've had time to adjust, and hopefully they are slowly moving forward. In 2021, where do you think brands need to go? Where do you see PR moving in this next year?
Well, I think definitely, we briefly just discussed it, but I think 2021 represents, in my opinion, a unique opportunity to become meaningful brands. And becoming a meaningful brand means not only talking about assets and functional benefits of what you're offering, but also to start talking a bit more about emotional benefits, social benefits, personality, values, and brand offer, So it's basically to cover the whole spectrum of your brand. Every brand should have a personality, should have a mission statement, and should have a purpose for existing. And it's been proven, it's not me saying it, but it's been proven by studies that meaningful brands perform better in terms of like purchase intent and repurchase intent as well, and create more affinity among their followers, or create more engagement, because people can relate to your brand not only from an asset and functional benefits, but also from an emotional standpoint. And I think 2021 and in 2020, as we're in right now, it's a year of struggle and change. It's like, in my opinion, if there's one word that defines 2020 is change, and anybody, even if your company is thriving in such environment, we're all changing our habits, our way of working, our way of communicating, our way of setting goals. Everything is changing. So that change creates resistance, and that's a first instincts that humans have, when they go through change. We resist it, right? We get upset because it's not our comfort zone. So we are all getting out of our comfort zones, and that is not a pleasant journey that we go through, So if we want to be meaningful as brands, we need to understand that and connect with that, and it becomes this safe space for people to be like, we understand you, we feel you, we know what you're going through. Because when a brand is not understanding, when a brand is sending messages across that create that distance with people, that creates, in a sense, like the feeling of isolation in the user, or like in the person that you're talking to, and this distance, oh, I cannot relate because I'm actually struggling. And this brand is telling me like, oh, I hope you all enjoyed an amazing, for example, I'll just give you an example. I got a newspaper, right, from the municipality of Amsterdam, and over the summer, saying like, at this point, most people enjoy an amazing vacation. And I'm like, I didn't go on vacation. There was like Corona. I'm an entrepreneur. It's not a pleasant time, some people got let off. So that created me this feeling of like, I can't relate to this messaging. I can't relate to what the municipality of Amsterdam is telling me, you know? And that is just, I mean, I can take that to many brands, you know, in lifestyle, in leisure, in like travel industries and everything. It's like sometimes in fashion, they don't communicate from an emotional understanding point of view. They always focus first on the traditional way of selling, and you can tell that they have this like very high commercial goals attached to their messaging. So that creates this distance, you know, between the person that they're talking to, their audiences, and the brand. So in my opinion, to sum up, it's very important to, as brands in 2021, start analyzing and mapping out what are the struggles that our audience have, you know, what are the pain points, you know, and talk from that point of view, you know, from an understanding point of view.
Yeah, I agree with you on this too. Our clients are more in the B2B industrial technology side. So at least with lifestyle and food, it's got people in it. Our clients have stuff that is usually not related to people. It's additives, it's chemicals, it's different kinds of things.
Yeah.
And in 2019, they were able to have that human connection by going to trade shows, but now everything is online.
Yeah.
And I think you're right with emotional intelligence. Somehow you have to bring that online and connect with the customer. Even if you can't see them, your customer still needs to feel a connection with you.
100%. And Michelle, even though your customers, you know, might be in the B2B space, I mean, they're part of like a community, right? And people around them are getting laid off, you know, budgets are getting cut. There are also, you know, still like borders are closing. So I'm sure like, you know, in some extent, they might also be, in a sense, like their users or their customers might in a sense be also, you know, going through at least one of these, you know, steps of trauma, as we say, you know, that we like through change basically. So I think the important thing is to acknowledge it, to acknowledge the elephant in the room, you know, and not to act like nothing happened, because that's what creates this distance, you know, that I'm talking about. And if you're fortunate enough that you're, you know, enough that you're hitting your OKRs and you're thriving as a business, I mean, good for you, and that's great. But keep in mind that a meaningful brand consists of not only financial assets, but also emotional benefits, you know? So overall, you're still talking to a person, you know? So you just need to keep that in mind. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's an important change that people will need to address. It's connecting with people.
Yeah.
Remembering who your customer is, and remembering who you are. You're not just a corporation. Your corporation is also made up of people.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you're a corporation, I mean, you're part of an industry. I'm sure that industry has been experiencing some sort of change as well, and journalists are looking for those stories. So for the PR teams in those companies, you know, understand that journalists are looking for stories about these topics, you know, change as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one big prediction for 2021, emotional intelligence. They need to embrace it. They need to find ways to connect better with people, even if it's through online, through their videos, through their advertising, any kind of things that they do.
100%.
I know another one of your predictions for 2021 is that you mentioned that CIOs and CMOs will need to work more closely together. Why is that?
100%. Well, that's because technology, of course, as we've been discussing, is taking like a leading role, right? I mean, we are moving everything digital. You know, for example, let's say that I'm a PR person and I work with a product, right? Like let's say I have a camera, like a security camera that I'm trying to sell, right? Traditionally, you would invite journalists to a press tour, like a press conference, or like somewhere that they can come and test the product. Now you can't do that. Technology, enabling that technology to be able to still interact and create these digital events, is becoming super important. And CIOs, like technology people, will have to work closer with marketeers to bridge that gap, to bridge that technology gap, and make sure that people can still engage with your brand in a digital way and have the same experience, at least not the same one, of course, but like a very closely similar experience with your brand in a digital manner. So yeah, that is very important. And also, I think overall, it's very important to understand the importance of loyalty programs. and that is also something that is important because a lot of brands are, at least in 2020, they were struggling with increasing pools of leads and clients. So they've been tapping on existing clients to basically resell. That is also, in my opinion, something that is going to be very important as well. So tactics for retention, such as email, customer service, it's going to be very important as well.
Yeah, I think so too, because you're right. The customers you have are the ones that you want to make sure you keep them, even if you're trying to get new ones to come in. But you want to make sure these ones are happy, even though they're not being able to connect with you in the way that they used to do before. One thing I'm seeing some struggles is in 2019 or 2018, customer service was always something that they were proud to do because you had that one-on-one connection. You can meet with them. If you had a problem, the person just went out to your plant and they fixed it, or they worked side by side. Today, a lot of things are being done online. So they're trying to translate that in-person customer service onto their online experience.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So these, all these technology solutions, are crucial, are very important, in my opinion. And we just need to find ways to just, in a sense, adapt to what is happening. And I think the PR industry, of course, it really depends if you're a B2C or B2B and how you used to interact with journalists. But there was an element of in-person interaction, that is unfortunately not going to happen for a while. So we just need to find ways to replace that, and maybe those ways might not only be Zoom calls, it could also be virtual reality, for example, or other types of technologies that we need to start, like open our minds and try to take from maybe other fields of work as well, So I think it's very important to also try to expand our vision and go a bit beyond that and talk to other teams within organizations and be like, how are you adapting? What tools are you using for this? Because ultimately you can use tools from, your sales team to do PR, or from, customer service for your sales team or whatever, at the end of the day, they're all solutions for better communication, let's say. So it is important to expand our horizons as well and try to be a bit more open-minded about how we move to a digital environment.
Yeah. It sounds like it's not just the marketing professionals and communications professionals that need to adapt to this new change and emotional intelligence. It sounds like the CIOs also need to change. It's not just about cybersecurity and cloud-based technology anymore. They also need to think, what does the company need to help to grow? How can we reach our customers, and how can I support the marketing team in making those connections for them?
Yeah, because I also think traditionally, CMOs did not work in a very integrated manner in the funnel, so they were constantly segregating acquisition from everything that happens after, let's say, a prospect completes a purchase, like product utilization, customer service, retention, advocacy, was always like a bad idea. And now the pandemic conditions make this disconnect even worse. But the thing is, these disjointed experiences, they will cost millions and lose customers, because they're the opposite of customer obsession. And acquiring customers is hard, and it's going to become even harder because people are more reluctant about spending. They spend way more time at home, so they're more mindful about how they spend the money and everything. So retaining and creating that advocacy is very important. And we as marketeers, and we as CEOs of whoever is listening to this podcast, we need to start thinking in an integrated manner instead of silos. Because at the end of the day, every customer has a customer experience that goes throughout the funnel. So it's important to understand, okay, how can we enable that experience? How can we actually improve that experience from every single step of the funnel by enabling it with proper technology, with proper, to improve the experience. Maybe, okay, you cannot invite them anymore to a one-on-one meeting, but what do you do instead? That's the question.
Yeah. I think 2021 is going to be a really interesting year. I think that, technology is going to be a bigger role. The silos are going to have to break down. And I think the sales funnel just got a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, indeed. But again, I think if we understand the importance of emotional intelligence and the importance of also mental health, I think that's something that could definitely play in our favor. I think something that I'm very grateful for 2020 is that it forced us all to be very self-critical. to start thinking, to appreciate what we had, but also to question a lot of things, how we used to do, because we have more time to reflect, right? Let's be honest, before 2020, things were hectic. The pace was super fast. Things were like, I remember I would never spend time at home. I was go from event to meeting, boom, boom, boom. And all of a sudden, like, okay, and now I'm forced to spend 3 months by myself to reflect. And then we started reflecting with my team. We're like, okay, if we will have the chance to do this again, would we do it in the same way? And I think that's a unique opportunity for us, all to question things, to understand, okay, do we want to continue in the same way or not? Most importantly, to become more human. I think because it's the only time, at least that I have experienced, where everyone is suffering at the same time. Doesn't matter how old you are, where you live. It's like an overall kind of thing. So it's like, it is important to understand who we are speaking to and what the person is going through. And not only from a sales point of view, but also content. For example, we create content, is that content going to help this person to navigate a certain part of that funnel, or to navigate a certain part of that trauma, or not, or to tackle a certain pain point that they might have or not.
Yeah. Well, we've only been able to touch on a few of Matías's 2021 predictions today, when we're already out of time. But to learn more about the future of PR, make sure you pick up a copy of his books, The PR Paradox, and follow him, and of course, follow EMG on LinkedIn. Thank you, Matías, for joining us today. This has been a very enlightening discussion.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I would like to encourage everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. And let's just be all part of the bigger discussion. So if there's anything I can do to help you, happy to do so.
Yeah, I think in these times, we all need to work together. 100%. Share ideas, share examples, and help grow.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you guys for listening today. And don't forget to tune in next month for another exciting Create, Connect, and Communicate podcast. Until then, have a great day.